Okay, hello guys. Good to be back. We're going to get back into it. Hopefully, if you were in class, you remember that yesterday or last class, we talked about the impact of NAFTA on jobs in both the United States and Mexico. And now we're going to talk about the impact of NAFTA in terms of drugs. And all this also plays into, of course, just the overall impact of NAFTA and the increase in trade throughout North America. Again, it goes without saying that Canada is involved in NAFTA as well, but we're just zeroing in on the impact between the US and Mexico and within those two countries because the cost of labor in Canada is comparable to that of the United States. So there's less need to get into that. Okay, we're going to have breakaway discussions. There are some prompts in that doc there if you want to get ahead and look at those. Make sure you scroll down to the middle of the page though, because the first set of prompts were prompts that Char's class put together for the previous reading. Okay, so we're going to watch this video too, obviously, not watching it here together on YouTube. All right, cool. So we're going to first get into the history, right? Just in general, actually. Broadly, you should understand from your reading already that there are many concerns, regardless of one's political ideology, with regard to drug trade and drug trafficking across the US-Mexico border. Now, we want to be really careful about the way that we talk about this. This video is not to scapegoat or place blame. It is just to lay the historical context. So, it's important first for us to realize that this is basic basic economics. It's the law of supply and demand. The reason why there is such a problem with drug trafficking is, again, not about political parties. It's not about who is in the White House, who's in the Senate. It is about the fact that drugs are highly addictive, and because of that, they are constantly in demand. It doesn't matter if they are legal or not. And if they're illegal, they will cost more. And if something costs more, the risk associated with that is far greater, or the risk associated with getting access to that product is greater. And that includes the producers, the traffickers, and the consumers. Okay, so let's get into it. These numbers I think speak for themselves. You might have been reading them when I was laying the context just now, but it's really hard actually for us to have completely accurate data anyway, because we're talking about an illegal trade. This is not the GDP. This is not something that statisticians can pinpoint. Okay, since drug trafficking involves exchanging money under the table, it's a black market industry. We are speculating these numbers. And also, if you're looking along at the slide numbers, all of these are interactive links for the most part. So if you're really interested, you can click on them and read more. Another thing that we don't talk about as much when we talk about the war on drugs is that this is also an issue of the illegal exchange of firearms. We're not talking about the legal purchasing of guns within the United States. We are talking about the illegal exporting of guns from the United States into Mexico. So, in addition to the currency, actual money that is exchanged across the border, there is another product that is flowing from the north to the south that we don't talk about as much. That because it is so easy to access firearms in the United States, they in turn are exported into Mexico and then beyond. So that's what these figures are about as well. And again, since yes, it is legal to purchase firearms, much more legal, much easier to purchase firearms in the United States than it is in Mexico. We are also talking about the illegal sale of firearms. So those numbers are also difficult to completely pinpoint. Okay, but still these studies are very very important. They do as best as they can to accurately report this data. And so the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms is really legit, so it's worthwhile to check out that study. Another thing that's important for us to realize is that drug trafficking is one thing, but producing drugs is another. So a drug that in general, we tend to talk a lot about marijuana and heroin and other opiates, but cocaine is another important example. And cocaine actually comes from the coca leaf, which is largely grown in Colombia. So we are seeing the production coming from South America, then it is trafficked, it is transported through Central America and Mexico, and then ends up in the United States and Canada, where demand is high, and also, of course, beyond places like Europe. Um, Mexico, yes, crime is high, cartels are rampant, not necessarily because the drug is sourced within the country, but because it has to go through the country. And the price only gets higher as you go through that journey. Okay. And that's what this is all about. Um, because despite the job creation in border cities from NAFTA, right? The increase in maquiladora factories, for example, our previous topic, we're seeing that since unemployment is still very high in Mexico, cartels actually take advantage of that. So oftentimes people who are recruited to work for drug cartels are doing it because they are desperate. They cannot find employment elsewhere. Another thing that's important for us to tie into that is that agriculture is in decline. Agricultural production is in decline in Mexico. Uh, U.S. agriculture is on the rise due to federal subsidies in agriculture. And so there is some production of some crops, such as marijuana, in Mexico to fill that void. But still, largely, Mexico is a transit country. And lastly, and I really said this at the beginning, due to supply and demand, uh, on the U.S. end, it's extremely expensive, right, to purchase drugs, and also because in general, uh, Americans they make higher wages, minimum wage is higher in the United States, and so that's also how supply and demand works. You charge as much as people are willing to pay. This map is getting at what I was discussing before, and I was just sort of getting at this, the idea that a product like cocaine can originate at, yes, still a high price. I believe, yes, this is the cost of a kilogram of cocaine in Colombia, but notice how much the cost increases as it reaches its final destination, a place like New York City, where in general, residents have much more money and are able to pay much more for that product. I want to keep these videos short because of distance learning, so I'm going to do a new one on the war on drugs in the United States, so stay tuned for that. Thanks.